Shu'aib, Ishaq, Khalil, and Muhammad, these people, they all have to be Muslims. They have to be sane. They have to be of age. Put the pens down. You gotta pay attention. Put the pens down. Pens can't help you right now. They have to be Muslims. They have to be sane. They have to be of age. And they must be people who have some type of religious piety. They're not open, wicked sinners who drink alcohol and abuse women and gamble and smoke and do these haram things. Everybody understand this? The third condition is that all four of these men, they have to have a strong retentive memory. Each of them has to have a what? Retentive memory. In other words, if I tell you something, you can't forget it 5 minutes later. If I tell you something, you can't forget it the next day. If you write something down, because you may not memorize it by heart. If you write something down, you give me your notebook. Bring it to me, please. Let's say you have a poor memory, Muhammad. You can't remember nothing. Your phone number, where you left your keys, nothing. These are your notes, correct?
Yes.
So you go home. You can sit down. You don't need a notebook anymore. Okay. He takes his notes. Let's say he has children. Takes notes and just and he sits and he drinks coffee and he allows his kids to scribble in his notes. Or let's say you live with someone who isn't a Muslim or someone who's untrustworthy, and he takes his notes and he does what? He doesn't see Muhammad and does what? Takes pages out of your notes. Or he copycats your handwriting. You have notes here and he writes there. In other words, he's forging things in your original what? Notes. And then you come back, come get your book now. He's heedless, assalamu alaikum, how are you? Mufti, happy, he doesn't think of anything. Here's your book. Yeah. He goes and he reports those narrations to Shu'aib. And he's so naive, so gullible, so green as we would say, he doesn't realize what has been done to his notes. Everybody understand this? This hadith will be what? Da'if. And it is not a binding condition that he memorizes it by heart. But if he wrote down the notes properly and correctly and passed it on to Shu'aib, it will be what? Just as if he did memorized it. But the moment he's not careful with those notes, it's just like him forgetting. Or even worse, mixing up the information. What color did Mufti have on last night in the lecture? He had on a blue thobe or a yellow thobe. That's worse than just saying, I can't remember. You understand? I don't remember what he was wearing. He's called Sayyid al-Hifz. In the moment he says he had on a green thobe, a yellow thobe, he was wearing pants and a shirt, now you're even worse. And the last and final condition of an accepted hadith is that the hadith must be void of any shudud or illah. The hadith cannot have any hidden defect. It cannot have a foul rejected meaning. It cannot be a report that seems to be acceptable, that seems to be sound, but there's an inward glitch. There's a hidden glitch. There is something about the isnad or about what he said that doesn't make sense. It isn't corroborated. It is not right. For example, if he reported, he said what? That Mufti hates to drink hot tea. He hates to drink hot tea. We have Muhammad, he's Muslim, he has a good memory. Shu'aib, Muslim, good memory. Ishaq, Khalil, etc. Now they give you that report, Muhammad. Or they give the report, Nafis, he got up. Someone who knows me. He says, I reported from my teacher, that Mufti Muhammad ibn Munir does not like to drink hot tea. Nafis would instantly say, this is batil, this is false. That's not true. What do you mean? Are you calling me a liar? You calling Shu'aib a liar? No, I'm not calling you a liar. But somewhere down the line, there's a mistake. Somewhere there's a line, there's a glitch. Because I know him too much and I know he drinks tea every single day. There's no way he could have said that. And the only person that will realize this mistake is someone who is an expert on whose life? I'm going to use an example right now. Whose life? My life. As for someone who just met me yesterday in Toronto, he says, oh yeah, Mufti doesn't like to drink hot tea. And the same applies to the sciences of hadith. The expert, erudite imam of hadith, who's memorized and studied, and he has fiqh and knowledge of the hadith, he knows that this is fabricated, this is made up, that's not sahih. Even though the chain of narration seems to be authentic. Even though all the narrators seem to be trustworthy, but there's one way or another, somebody made a glitch. And let's say, for example, hypothetically, you got up to use your cell phone. Go get up, use your cell phone. You get a phone call. Tayyib, go get up. You, Akhi, please come. Come, quick, very quick. Very quick. Quickly. Tayyib, take this pen and write down in his notes that I don't like to drink hot tea. Quickly, in a purple notebook right there. You gotta write it down. You go use your cell phone now. He's on the phone, he's talking to his wife or his brother or mother. He writes down, blah, 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 blah. All right, scribble some dots. Just put some dots now. And put it down. Go back to your seat. Go back to your seat now, Muhammad. Quickly. Quickly. So now your student, Shu'aib, he says, what's the narration that you got from Mufti? No, your memory is weak. So you give it to him from your what? Your notes. In other words, he picks up the notes, Mufti doesn't like hot tea. And he goes back to the phone. In other words, someone forged something in his book. And he didn't realize it. And you, Shu'aib, you didn't pay attention to it either. Ishaq tapped you on the shoulder when that brother came up and wrote in his book. It's a hidden what? Defect. And the only person that will realize this hidden defect is someone who has a great deal of knowledge. That he's careless with his books. And someone says the phone rang when he got that narration. And another brother came and took his book, etc. So these are 4 conditions for hadith to be sahih. Number 1, the chain must be continuous. Number 2, the narrators must be religious and pious. Number 3, they must have strong retentive memories. Number 4, the hadith cannot have any hidden glitch or defect in the isnad, the chain, or in the actual text. In the actual what? In the actual text. Everybody got this? Khayr, inshallah. So therefore, any hadith that fails to meet these 4 conditions is considered to be da'if, regardless whether it has a good or bad meaning. And there are levels of weakness. Some hadiths which are da'if are extremely weak. Some are slightly weak. Some are total lies. So therefore, is it permissible to mention a weak hadith? And is it permissible to mention a fabricated hadith? Fabricated hadith, we say no, don't mention it. Extremely weak, we say what? Don't mention it. A student of knowledge who studies and reads and benefits, he is going to come across weak narrations when he reads the books of the ulama. Tafsir Ibn Kathir. You study fiqh. You study seerah. You study books of nahw, of grammar. You're going to find narrations that are weak. So it's permissible to study them, benefit from them, and pass them on? We say it all depends who you're speaking to. Someone has no type of understanding, don't tell them something unless you believe it's sahih. You're speaking to other students, different story. You're translating the book of the past, that's a different story. You understand what I'm saying? The concept that a hadith that's da'if is totally disregarded, that is disregarded. And there are many hadiths that are considered weak, that Imam al-Tirmidhi rahimahullah, he says, وَلَا عَمَلُوا عَلَيْهِ إِنَّ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم ومن بعدهم وهو قول فلان فلان فلان. At-Tirmidhi, he may say, this hadith, لَيْسَ إِسْنَادُهُ بِالْقَائِمِ. Its isnad is this and is that. But this is what the Sahaba implemented. This is what they practiced. This is what they did. This was their fatwa. So there has to be detail. Those who say that you can quote any hadith, they're wrong. Those who say that a hadith is weak, has no value, is totally disregarded, they're also wrong. But there is a balance. What is the level of weakness? What is the hadith speaking on? And who you're speaking to and who you're quoting the hadith to. Most Muslims today have no clue what a hadith is. What is a sahih hadith, what is da'if hadith? Let alone distinguishing between the khatib says, there is a hadith that states. The khatib said, there is a hadith that has some weakness, but its meaning is correct. The average person who's going to leave the masjid, and what is he going to say? The Prophet ﷺ said. That's what he's going to do. He's not going to distinguish to what the khatib said. So it all depends on who you're speaking to. And as it states in the athar, khayr. We'll stop there. Hopefully that's clear. If you have any other questions, please go back to those videos. Bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have some questions here. Is ethanol alcohol halal? It's used in ingredients. Second question says, can you use bukhur while fasting in the home? Third question says, can women touch the Quran on iPhone while on period? Fourth question says, can you rent a car or a condo or a home that was bought with a mortgage in between brackets, riba? As for the first question, using alcohol, then we say there are different types of alcohol. There are different uses for these different types of alcohol. As far as khamr, quote unquote, wine or beer or liquor, actual alcohol that's consumed and used as a drink, then we all know it's haram according to all of the ulama of Islam. It's haram. As far as, is it najis? Is it considered to be pure or impure? And this has a direct effect on ruling. Because if you say khamr is najis, then you can't touch it. You can't put it on. You can't spray it on. If you say it's najis, it cannot be sold. If you say it's najis, then it's what? It's automatically haram. If it's haram, you can't what? You can't sell it. So therefore, is khamr considered to be najis? That's one concept. The next concept is ethanol alcohol. Is that the khamr that the Prophet ﷺ spoke on and wants from? And the third question is, what is it being used as an ingredient? Is it burnt out? Is it a byproduct or by ingredient? Is it being mixed, etc.? All of these things are plausible to the answer. They're all what? Plausible to the answer. So it all depends. Me personally, I would say rubbing alcohol and these things like this, if they're used in an ingredient, a cooking ingredient, a cleaning agent. As far as a cleaning agent, I wouldn't say it's unlawful. I wouldn't say it's haram to use on a cut or burn or even cleaning the surface. As far as it being used as an ingredient, I don't know, perhaps in a food, something that you eat, is a long issue in itself. Is it permissible to eat something that has gelatin in it or alcohol in it? Can you have beer battered fish and chips? That's a long issue in itself. How much beer is in the fish? How hot is the grease? Is it cooked out? Does it burn out? These are things in which chemists, chefs, and ulama all differ over. Some of them say the alcohol is burnt out, some say it doesn't. Some of them say you can't get drunk if you had 10 pieces of fish, let alone one piece. And we all know the concept of alcohol. If a lot gets you drunk, then a little bit is haram. We also have the concept of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and many of Ahl Kufa, the ulama of Kufa in Iraq, who they made a distinction, or they separated between khamr from grapes and khamr from other things besides grapes. In other words, all of the ulama say it's haram to have a small tiny cup of wine, grape wine. However, if you have a fermented drink from honey or barley or dates that does not get you drunk, unless you have an abundance of it, can I have a little bit of it? These are all technical issues among the classical schools of thought. As far as rubbing alcohol and cooking alcohol, then we've explained the answer, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next question says, can you use bukhur while fasting in the home? We say, bi'idhnillah, yes, you can use bukhur. And the smoke that comes from the bukhur, you shouldn't inhale the smoke. You should not inhale it. La yastanshiq. He says you shouldn't what? Inhale it and allow the smoke to reach into the insides of your body. That's a long issue of khilaf among the ulama. What breaks a person's fast? Is it eating, drinking, and sexual contact? Or eating, drinking, sexual contact, and that which takes the place of eating and drinking, such as a needle, or such as kuhl in one's eyes, or such as water that is inhaled through the nostrils, or water that reaches one's insides, one's jawf, through the eyes, or such as surgery, or such as vexation, or getting blood drawn, taking blood, having an organ transplanted, taken out of your body. Some of the ulama of today even mention when a woman goes to the OBGYN, a woman gets checked at a doctor's, and they go into her body, they examine her body, and a utensil, or a tool is used on a woman's body. It was well known to women. Some of the ulama say it breaks her fast because it has entered her jawf, her insides. So very long khilaf among the ulama. Me personally, smoke, I would not consider smoke to break the fast by smelling it. Rather, if a person said inhaling the smoke doesn't break the fast, perhaps that is a correct opinion, because the Prophet, he never said that. He didn't say smoke. He said food and drink and sex. Food, drink, and sexual intercourse. And he did not mention these other things. So some of the fuqaha of the past, they have derived, they've extracted, and they've tried to come as close as they could to the meaning of the Prophet ﷺ and the intended objective of the Prophet ﷺ behind the mufattirat, things which break the fast. And the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad ﷺ. Third question says, can a woman touch the Quran on an iPhone while on her period? Bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no sin upon that. Whereas the iPhone is not the Mus'haf, an iPad is not the Mus'haf Sharif. Rather, some of the ulama, and is the strongest view, they hold the opinion that a woman who's in on her period can touch the Mus'haf. And there is no strong, clear, authentic dalil to prove otherwise. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Last question says, can you rent from a condo or home that was bought with mortgage? We say it's a very long issue, and there are many people who go extreme on both sides. Some people say you're in America, all riba is halal. Eat what you want, drink what you want from riba, it doesn't matter. There isn't an Islamic state, it's not a Muslim state, there's no Muslim government, there's no Sharia. Allah doesn't want us to have a hardship. We live in 2015, it's difficult to rent your entire life. I'll pay rent for 30, 40, 50 years, my kids don't have a house, so on and so forth. We have to have riba. And then there's some people who go too far on the other side, and they say that everything is haram. You can't go to Western Union. You can't have a checking account. You can't do any transaction. You can't rent from no one. And you have to go and live out in the forest if you have to avoid riba. And this is the deen, and the hadith states that a time will come in which holding fast to the deen will be like holding on to hot coals. And then there's some people who are in the middle who say that riba is initially haram. It's originally haram, and it's a major sin. It's from the 7 destructive sins, as the Prophet ﷺ has clearly stated. However, there may be a time in which it's a means of necessity. There may be a time in which it's very difficult to avoid it. There may be a time in which he has no choice but to deal with someone who's dealing with riba. And the lesser of the two harms is for his hand not to directly touch the riba. اختلاف اليد يستلزم اختلاف الحكم. اختلاف الحكم. As some of the fuqaha, they say that the direct hand is not the same as the indirect hand. In other words, I rent from someone who's paying a mortgage. The mortgage, the ruling on it, halal, haram, he doesn't even own the property. That's another problem. And that's another impermissible transaction in Islam, which many people ignore. They talk about riba, but they don't speak about bay'u ma la yamlikuhu al-insan. Selling something that you do not own is unlawful in Islam, as the Prophet ﷺ clearly forbade. He forbade a man to sell something that he doesn't own. Buying it, renting it from an agent is different. But the person does not own the property. He is paying rent on the property. He's paying mortgage on the property, and he's also renting to you. That's another problem. It's another problem. So we say it depends on the time and the place. Some people have the ability to buy without riba. Some people have the ability to rent and they don't have to buy. Some people have the ability to deal with al-hiyal al-shar'iyya, as the fuqaha they say, legislative ways out, ways of avoiding riba. Ways of what? Avoiding riba. If the bank buys the house, it sells you the house at a higher price, and it's not interest, but it's the actual new price. Bay' al-taqsit yani. Al-hiyal al-shar'iyya, these legislative ways of getting out of riba, there's no need to deal with the riba. But there is no doubt, there's some times and places in which it may be extremely difficult, extremely burdensome for a person to avoid certain types of riba. So we say it all depends. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. There must be tafsil. There must be a handmade thobe. You go to the tailors, he measures your shoulders, your arms, your neck, how tall do you want it, what type of pocket you want, what type of buttons would you like. That's a master tailor. And then you have the thobe that fits you and that lasts and it's quality. As far as the ready-made thobe that you buy off the shelf, you wash it, it's going to shrink. It's going to fade. The buttons will do what? They fall apart and they're ripped. And this is the same of the ready-made fatwa. The ready-made fatwa that you just pick off the shelf. It's not a good fatwa. Fatwa has to be customly designed to the person. For you, haram for you to pay mortgage. For this brother, in this situation, in this state, in this city, he may have to pay the mortgage, etc., etc. Wallahu ta'ala alam. If there are any other questions, we will stop now. Tafadhal.
What you had said before about smoke, somebody would take this and maybe smoke cigarettes on Ramadan or fast.
Question says, with regards to smoke, somebody may take this with regards to fasting and smoking cigarettes while fasting. We say first and foremost, whether smoke breaks the fast or not, a Muslim is not to smoke a cigarette, a cigar, tobacco, whatever you're smoking. You shouldn't smoke. And that is because when you fast, fasting is no different than any other time. You have to lower your gaze in Ramadan and outside of Ramadan. You can't listen to haram things inside or outside of Ramadan. You shouldn't hit people and curse at people, and the list goes on. If you have a girlfriend and you have sexual contact with this girlfriend or a boyfriend It's haram in Ramadan and what? Outside of Ramadan. But it's worse in Ramadan. It's ugly in Ramadan. And that is because the nobility of a time and the nobility of a place increases the reward and increases the sin as well. So if Ramadan is virtuous time, so it's even worse for you to smoke a cigarette. And it's even more disrespectful to yourself, to the people, and to Allah. So therefore, whether the smoke breaks the fast or not, a Muslim should not smoke a cigarette. A sound human being should not smoke a cigarette. Therefore, we warn the Muslims from smoking cigarettes or smoking cigars or blunts or whatever you want to call them. We warn you from that inside or outside of Ramadan. It is haram and is a means of killing yourself and killing others, regardless whether it breaks the fast or not. And no one is to misunderstand encouraging or not encouraging. Well, it's a means of what? Dabt yani, of regulating this and regulating that. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Jazakum khair, Shaykh. Inshallah, we're going to continue with the lectures. Sheikh Abdulaziz is up next, inshallah, talking about the history of the Khawarij. So we'll be talking about that. And inshallah, after Isha, we will have a Q&A, question and answer. So we have, if you have any more questions, especially for the sisters, please write down your questions so you can have them sent over.